Israel is striking back at Hamas. However, it will face three primary challenges if it's going to succeed in its objectives. To review, Israel stated after the October 7th attacks that their primary objective will be the total destruction of Hamas. They've stated that, to achieve this, they're planning on launching a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, where they'll have to contend with the three challenges I've identified. The first challenge is likely what will occupy the IDF's attention through their operation. Hamas is known to operate with an underground tunnel network below Gaza, spanning 300 miles in length. These tunnels allow fighters safe passage all across the strip, and they're able to store food, fuel, ammunition, and personnel protected against IDF airstrikes. For the IDF to fully eliminate Hamas, they'll have to find an answer for these tunnels. They're able to do this with a series of sensors and tools that allow the IDF to identify locations of tunnels, but the next step will be to find the entrances and to seal them off. There is a risk to this, however, that hostages and civilians would also be hiding in the tunnels, meaning that if the IDF is truly intent on rescuing the hostages and avoiding civilian casualties, they'll have to go into the tunnels and clear them. That said, doing so would likely be an incredibly costly task, and this is likely what Hamas would want the IDF to do, as it could create traps and ambushes that generate significant IDF casualties. The easiest solution for the IDF would be to simply find all the entrances and to seal them, leaving all in the tunnels to their fate. However, again, this runs the risk of sacrificing whatever civilians and hostages are also down in the tunnels. All of this being said, it's still deceptive to call this the easy path, as there are likely hundreds if not thousands of entrances to the expansive tunnel network spread throughout the Gaza Strip. Each entrance is likely well hidden, with some located under civilian infrastructure like schools, hospitals, mosques, and residential buildings. The IDF will have to move room to room, building by building, block by block, across the entire strip if all these entrances are to be found and sealed. This is certainly not easy, though it's simpler than trying to actually find the entrances and going into the tunnels to clear them out as well. In doing this, they will have to avoid their next main challenge, preventing civilian casualties and finding the hostages captured on October 7th. The IDF has changed their objectives to list their first objective as the destruction of Hamas, with the secondary objective of limiting civilian casualties and finding the hostages. Gaza is tiny and home to over 2.3 million Palestinians. Gaza City, which is in the north of the Gaza Strip and is home to a large portion of the population, is likely where Israel will focus its invasion in the beginning, as this has also been the source of Hamas rocket barrages and the center of Hamas's power for years. However, with Egypt not opening its borders to Palestinian refugees, and a significant limitation in land in the south of the Strip for civilians to flee to, civilians will be caught in open terrain with a lack of infrastructural support in the middle of a war zone. If civilians choose to stay in Gaza City, they'll risk the crossfire between Hamas and IDF forces, as well as the bombing and shelling that comes with heavy urban combat. This is going to prove extremely challenging, as IDF troops moving street by street will have to contend with constricted spaces and the fear that any given person they come across could be a Hamas fighter. Civilians caught in the middle could be easily confused in some cases, especially if the IDF decides to be so thorough as to go room by room, building by building, in search of the tunnel entrances discussed earlier. They will have to avoid excessive civilian casualties to mitigate challenge number 3, which is the risk of this war escalating into a wider regional conflict. Hezbollah and Iran have both threatened Israel if it invades Gaza. Iranian-linked groups in Iraq have also threatened the United States should Israel invade Gaza and the United States become involved. In fact, the United States has already suffered attacks from Iranian-backed groups throughout Iraq, prompting U.S. airstrikes in Syria recently. Should Israel invade, the risk of their involvement grows even further if the war drags on, involving a large portion of the IDF and generating a large number of civilian casualties. Israel can handle a war with Hamas. However, Hezbollah is considered closer to a peer adversary to the IDF, with a claimed strength of 100,000 fighters, but a more realistic accounting being somewhere below that figure. Hezbollah is also believed to be in possession of over 130,000 rockets, with some more advanced missile systems being delivered to it by Iran. Hezbollah and Iran share a close relationship, where Hezbollah is known to receive training and material support, and its leaders have met frequently over the past years, including since the October 7th attacks. If Hezbollah opens opens a new front with Israel, the consequences would be immediate and dire. The IDF would be under significant strain trying to crush Hamas in Gaza while also fighting Hezbollah in the north. This is a possible reason why the US threatened Hezbollah that it would intervene if Hezbollah joined the war, moving 2 carrier battle groups in a Marine Expeditionary Brigade to the Mediterranean. This already puts Israel in a larger regional war, but should Iran also become involved, the battle area expands from Gaza to northern Israel all the way across the Middle East to Iran, including Iraq and Syria, as both countries are home to US forces as well as to groups aligned with Iran. Already, US forces have been attacked by groups aligned with Iran. However, should the war turn regional, the size and scale of these attacks on US forces will likely dramatically escalate. This is why the US and Israel aren't eager to see this escalate into a larger war, which is one potential reason why Israel has delayed its invasion of Gaza for so long. Israel has ways to answer these challenges. However, none of the answers to these challenges are easy. First, Israel will need a significant amount of manpower. To generate this, they've called up around 330,000 reservists from around the world. This gives them manpower, which they need to fight street by street in Gaza, while also maintaining a needed reserve force for a fight in the north with Hezbollah if it comes to it. Next, Israel will have to have an answer for the Palestinian civilians and hostages. For the Palestinian civilians, Israel has had to be reined back by the US to allow aid into Gaza. In Israel's view, aid has often been taken by Hamas and used to support its forces or even used to fight directly against Israel, so it doesn't view aid corridors into Gaza as legitimate or safe. That said, it will need to do something to provide safety, food, and water for the 2.3 million inhabitants to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. Finally, Israel will need to maintain deterrence against Iran and Hezbollah. Hezbollah may be a tougher group to deter as it operates asymmetrically, similar to Hamas, and would be able to inflict serious damage in a war with Israel. Iran, however, may be simpler, as Israel claims to be in possession of nuclear weapons, and that possession alone is enough deterrence to potentially keep Iran sidelined. That said, things would have to really escalate to get to the point of any use of nuclear weapons, and a lot of things would have to break down behind the scenes diplomatically across the Arab world for it to get that bad. However, that we're even discussing the use of nuclear deterrence should bear in consideration for how bad the situation could get for Israel. To see why Israel is caught in a catch-22 situation, check out this video. This is a challenging topic, so let me know your thoughts below as well. If you want to support the channel, consider buying me a coffee. Like this video if it was informative as well. Until next time.